For today's lesson, we're going to be talking about the genre of dystopian fiction. Now, dystopian fiction has been very popular both in text and in the movies, and I think you'll recognize some of these titles as we go. Now, as you look at these films that come up, what I'd like you to do is to start to think about what sort of common threads you see in them, what kind of connections and patterns come along. One of the most popular of the dystopian film series is probably The Matrix. Now, the original Matrix movie came out in 1999 and featured a couple of follow-ups. And this is a futuristic setting where the young man who's our hero discovers that the life that we all think we're living is not actually reality. And how he discovers all of this and what his role is going to be in liberating people becomes the emphasis for all of the three movies. Metropolis is probably one of the oldest examples that we have of the dystopian film genre. And you'll notice that it came out in 1927, the original. It was a black and white silent feature. And then there were restorations that were done in 1984 and again in 2002. Now, the 1984 version is kind of interesting because it also features a contemporary rock and roll soundtrack with the music of Queen and Pat Benatar, all the groups that were really hot in the 1980s. But Metropolis is a science fiction kind of setting, again, a future world where the world has been divided into the thinkers and the doers, the workers and those who make the plans. And a young man goes down and visits from the thinking world, goes down to visit the underground world of the workers, and is kind of surprised at what he finds and the way the events play out from that point. Rollerball is another dystopian fiction that came out originally in the 70s and then had a remake again in 2002. Now, this is set in a future world, but in not quite so distant a future. You'll notice the original setting is 2018, so not too far from where we are today. And at this point, the corporations control everything now. And the corporations provide people for everything that they need, a crime-free environment, all of their wants, in return for cooperation, basically, so long as they don't rock the boat too much or ask too many questions. Rollerball has become the sport that everyone watches to keep people's aggression and competitive tendencies under control. And the story happens when one of the stars, I think our best NFL players or pro sports today, decides to rebel back against the corporations and the chaos that ensues from that. Logan's Run came out in 1976 and featured a world from the 23rd century where essentially we have solved all of society's problems. Everyone is perfectly healthy, everyone is beautiful, no one has to do anything except create and be entertained. But there is a little catch. On the 30th birthday, everyone goes into a lottery and supposedly is being selected for the next life. But as our hero finds out, the selection process is actually a death sentence. So the way that they're keeping the people under control and are able to provide for everything is by basically just killing everyone once they hit their 30th birthday. Our main character is Logan, and his run refers to the rebellion that he does when he decides on his 30th birthday that he himself is going to become a runner. This film was also remade in the 1990s and was called The Island, but the same basic plot line of this future world where everything is perfect until it's not. Children of Men is one of the more recent films that fits the dystopian genre. It came out in 2006 and starred Clive Owen, and it features a film where no more babies are being born, and everyone has basically gone into a complete sense of despair. There's a massive power grab for whatever is left, and then finally this young woman appears out of nowhere, and she's pregnant. And the rest of the film is the battle for who's going to control this woman and what's going to happen to the rest of humanity. Artificial Intelligence was a Stanley Kubrick film, but unfortunately he died in the middle of making it. Now, Steven Spielberg liked this story so much that he decided to go ahead and take over the directing and the producing to finish the story. It's basically a Pinocchio story. It's set in the distant future where the polar ice caps have melted and people have developed robots who are so sophisticated that they can replace many of our tasks and even be companions to people. They have real reactions and emotions, and one young robot boy is trying to win back the affections of the human mother who abandoned him. So just like Pinocchio, he's on this search to be a real boy. Starship Troopers is from 1997 and features a group of scrappy young teenagers who are promised full citizenship if they join the military and get shipped off to this distant planet and fight back against the alien insect-like creatures that are invading and are threatening all of humanity. Now, Idiocracy is an interesting addition to our dystopian film list because, unlike the other films, this is a comedy. It's a satire that tells the story of a young man who is deemed to be average in absolutely every way and is supposed to be woken up in 1 year after agreeing to participate in this social experiment. Instead, as they say in the movies, things go horribly wrong. And when he wakes up, it's the year 2505. And at this point in the world's future history, the stupid people have completely outbred all of the intelligence from the human race. And the world is being run by people who can barely learn how to tie their own shoes. And what follows is an interesting commentary on the world we live in today and some of the warnings that the authors and producers might have for us in contemporary society. The movie V is a much more serious entry into our dystopian fiction category. It's set in a futuristic London society where the government controls all of the media and all of the lives of the people, and a masked vigilante has somehow been hacking into the airwaves and putting out all of these revolutionary messages, urging the people to rebel and to rise up against this oppressive society. A young woman, played by Natalie Portman, is approached by this vigilante named V and becomes a rather unlikely leader for the rebellion. Blade Runner is a Ridley Scott film from 1982 and features a young Harrison Ford in one of his first roles. Now, in this futuristic setting, humanity has learned how to create clones, or replicants as they call them, that are mostly used to do kind of the dirty work in off-world types of settings. But sometimes the replicants go bad, and that's where the Blade Runners come in. They're the type of cops who specialize in terminating the replicants, and Harrison Ford is called back in from retirement when 5 replicants go bad and come in and escape from an off-world colony and then make their way back to Earth. 12 Monkeys was a movie that came out around 1995 and starred Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis. The movie takes place in the future in 2035, where a terrible apocalypse has happened that has wiped out about 99% of human population. Bruce Willis embarks on a mission to go back into the past to the year 1996 to see if he can figure out what happened and how to prevent this apocalypse from occurring. Instead of going back, though, he lands in the middle of an insane asylum in 1996 and has to try to unravel the situation from there. The Handmaid's Tale is based on a novel by Margaret Atwood. Now, this one is set in the United States in a future where we've had a religious civil war that has split the country and a nuclear apocalyptic event that has left only about 10% of American women still able to have children. Those women who are still fertile have been captured by the side of the country that's controlled by these religious fundamentalists. And it's the story of one young woman who tries to escape from this corrupted and controlling system. The Terminator may be one of the most successful of the franchises that fit into this dystopian genre. It features a society where the corporations have become so greedy and so much in pursuit of technological advances that they actually create computers that become sentient or self-aware. And these computers decide that their mission is to destroy humanity in order to preserve their own kind. The Road is a film from 2009 that's based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Cormac McCarthy. Now, in this novel, in the future, something terrible has happened. We're never told exactly what the event is, if it was a nuclear holocaust or some sort of environmental disaster. But we see a father and a son who are trying to escape from this very bleak and barren landscape, and they are on the road in hope of heading south to see if there's anything out there that might possibly be better, anything out there that's still alive, that still has some degree of hope. When we think of the category of dystopian films, we probably don't think of the words Disney and Pixar, but the film Wall-E definitely fits into this category. You have a society that has become corrupted by over-materialism. We've completely destroyed our environment and our home planet, and we are left to the devices of technology to continue to save what's left of people, while this robot Wall-E is down on Earth trying to figure out if we're ever going to be able to return back to our home planet. The 2007 film I Am Legend is based on a film from the 1970s that starred Charlton Heston. Now, this features a world where a plague has wiped out almost all of the population, except a very small percentage of people who succumb to this disease don't die from it, but instead are transformed in these kind of zombie vampire type creatures. Will Smith's character is a doctor who had just discovered a vaccine before most of the people were killed and is desperately trying to find a way to replicate that vaccine and see if there's any way to preserve what's left of humanity. Now, the films that we've looked at in this presentation are just a few samplings of films that fit into this dystopian category. And you can see from the list some of the other series that come in from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even from the last couple of years. Now, what we're going to do when we get back to class is to see if you can come up with some sort of a class definition for what are the characteristics of this genre of dystopian fiction, and then we're going to play around with creating some of these kinds of ideas ourselves.